Welcome to Bill's Aviation Podcast, where your stories are our stories. I'm a general aviation pilot, aviation writer, airplane builder, avionics developer, test pilot, and general screw-up. All stories feature Joe and his merry band of miscreants. The purpose of these stories is to educate and entertain pilots. If you have a story you'd like to share anonymously, please contact me. Today's story is titled Buzz the Tower. Joe was returning from enjoying a $100 barbecue sandwich, which is the southern equivalent of a $100 hamburger. On Joe's route home, he had to transit a Class Delta airport. Class Delta airports are smaller airports that have enough activity to warrant a control tower to manage the flow of traffic in and around that airport. Although Joe wasn't going to land and could have easily climbed above the controlled airspace, knowing the tower was part of a military training base, and on prior flights the tower had assisted passage through their airspace while calling out some cool military hardware, Joe tuned into the tower's frequency and made his request to transit the airfield. Joe's call was answered quickly, but with a request from the tower. They wanted to know if Joe could buzz the tower so the military controllers could see his plane. Joe was happy to oblige the request. As Joe was turning inbound to line up with the runway, the controllers reminded Joe that he couldn't touch down on the runway, which Joe quickly acknowledged. Then, as Joe was just over the threshold, the controller asked if he could fly right next to the tower, aka like they've done on Top Gun, and then continued to adjust his heading so he would rip right over the commander's quarters, where they assured Joe that the commander was taking a nap. Joe elected to play it straight and stay over the runway, climbing up and away at the end of the runway and turning on course, much to the disappointment of the controllers. Lesson learned. Had Joe complied with the controller's request and buzzed the tower in the commander's quarters, no amount of, "they asked me to," would have gotten him out of any FAA violation the base commander might toss in his direction. When flying, you are the pilot in command, not some controller. It is up to you to obey the rules and regulations. Thank you for listening, and if you've enjoyed what you heard, please hit the like button and subscribe by clicking on the logo on the lower right of your screen. If you really like what you've heard, please help support the channel and become a Patreon. Part of each donation will go to aviation safety and aviation youth programs. Be sure to check out next week's story about Joe getting blown into a tree on departure.